Hey everyone, Slambo here, starting another thread this time. I mentioned in one video a long time ago that, I said, I'm the train guy, I should know this. Well, it's time to explain that. I'm big into model railroading and rail fanning, so I really love trains, and I still play with trains. This is a shirt that I got at the National Railroad Museum. There it is. National Railroad Museum in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And that led to the thought, we had a discussion on one of Rachel's live streams this week about train songs and trains appearing in on records. So I've got a few that I want to show of various different types, and I'd like to see what you guys have as well. So let's start out with what I've got. First thing I've got to show is a small 7-inch 78 RPM record. Let's see if we can get that in focus there. That's sort of in focus. There it is, Railroad Sounds. This has 2 trips on it. On one side we've got the sound of authentic effects on a trip from New York to Chicago, and on the other side we've got authentic effects trip from Chicago to Los Angeles. I don't see a date on here, but I'm almost certain, I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm almost certain that these would be steam train recordings. And that leads into the next set of records that I've got. There are records of just train sounds. So this is a sound effects record. This one is the volume 8, that's just trains. And this one starts off with steam locomotive, standing with boiler thumping, with conductor whistle, moves through the yards, approaches, stops with steam exhaust. And then down here we've got actually Canadian trains. There's some Canadian diesels. So there's a K signal, a Y signal, inside the cab, in a car behind the locomotive, train underway as heard from inside a compartment, no whistles, modern welded track, high speed, and then with click of wheels on older style track in another track, and then some sounds from a railway station. It says general activity, some voices, no announcements. So a mix of different sound effects on that one. But as far as sound effects go, one of the top ones that I think was actually made by a commercial photographer. This is Thunder on Blue Ridge. This was recorded by O. Winston Link, who has a museum in Norfolk, Virginia, because he was well known for photographing the Norfolk and Western transition from steam to diesel. And this is one of his photos here on the front cover. There's a few more of his photos here on the back cover. So he did a couple of these records. This is the one that I happen to have in my collection. So Sounds of Steam Railroading, Volume 3, it says here on the bottom. So those are some sound effects, but there are also a lot of records and albums of songs about trains, or compilations. So I've got a couple of them here to show. I've got this one, which is Between the Rails, America's Train Songs. There are 18 tracks on this one, and this one is various artists. So we've got Waylon Jennings, we've got Jimmy Rogers, we've got Johnny Cash, Roger Miller, Hank Williams, Howlin' Wolf, Merle Haggard, and a whole bunch of others on here singing songs about trains. But then also we've got a multiple CD set, the 3 CD set, Western Railroad Songs. These are performances of songs that would have been done while the railroad was being built and soon afterwards. So we start off with 900 Miles, Railroad Traveler, the Rock Island Line, Kansas Land, and then we go on. We've got a section about the Golden Spike, including the hand cart song, Echo Canyon, Shoot the Buffalo, Pullman Porters on Parade, and then down in part 3, just to give you a sample, we've got The Little Red Caboose Behind the Train, Please Mr. Conductor, The Railroad Boomer, and then disc 3 we've got, part 4 is 5 Transcontinental Railroads. We've got Casey Jones, The Peninsula Pike, Rosenthal's Ghost, Old Jay Gould, Oh Jimmy Fisk, My Joe, which were Jay Gould and James Fisk were 2 of the main railroad moguls who were instrumental in building the railroads. and it ends with the Wabash Cannonball. There's almost 3 hours of music on this 3-disc set. But then there's a whole bunch of other songs that were made that have either train or railroad in the name, and it wasn't released on a record just of train songs. I'm going to leave out some of the most well-known songs in this and just focus on some of the more obscure and comedy songs and tracks in my collection, because this is the start of a thread, and I want to let you guys find some and tell us about them in your own collection. So on Flanders and Swan, At the Drop of Another Hat, there's a song on here about the Beeching Axe of 1965. The Beeching Axe was a report by Dr. Richard Beeching. He put it out as a way to remove unprofitable branch lines from the British railway system. So the track on here is called Slow Train, and that's often what they were on those unprofitable lines, is that they were very slow trains. But then also on this record, the Grasshoppers Sing the Chipmunk Song. Let's see, but it also has, I gotta look back at my notes here, it has a track. I've been working on the railroad, looking at my notes here, because it's not very obvious looking at that list, and it's not very obvious here on the front here. And then on Songs That Tickle Your Funny Bone, another record full of children's songs, we have another, look back at my notes here because it doesn't have a track list on the back, and it's very hard to read on the front, but looking back at my notes, it's got a song on here, Peanut Sat on the Railroad Track. And then another record, Flip Wilson, Flipped Out. This one doesn't have a track listing at all on it, so this one I definitely have to look back at my notes at. This one has a track called Train Signaling Job. And finally, on the No Disco album, there's the tracks on the back there, and I look at my notes so I can spot it even faster. There's a track on here that most people should be able to recognize called Love Train. And then finally, the last thing I want to show, this is a thrift shop find. An album of 78s. There it is, Sparky and the Talking Train. So let's see what you've got in your collection. I want to see records that connect to trains and railroads and railroad stations and taking a train trip. You know, there's several that come to mind immediately from popular music, from rock and roll music, that you should be able to find in your collection. Either show me a song that has a train in the title, or something related to trains in the title. Show me an album that has a picture of a train on the cover. You know, we've had a couple of those here today. Show me something that has train sounds on it even. Either straight sound effects or where the train is part of the song itself. So that's my challenge to you. Show me stuff about trains, because I still play with trains. That's what I've got today. See you next time.